The Green Bay Packers loading up on some weapons for new starting quarterback Jordan Love. The Jordan Love era is finally here, and the Green Bay Packers seem to be paying attention. To talk more about it, we've got Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, here. But before we get to that, we'll let you know that all of our Locked On NFL draft coverage is presented by our friends over at Ultimate Football GM. You think you can run an NFL franchise? Well, visit ultimate-gm.com today to play the Ultimate NFL GM simulation game. Start your dynasty today. Peter, at pick 42, tight end Luke Musgrave of Oregon State headed to the Green Bay Packers. Maybe not the tight end that a lot of folks named to the Packers. Guys like the ones in the first round, like maybe yourself, but still get the big body. How do you feel Luke Musgrave contributes to Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers?
Right before the draft, there was a little discussion on Packers Twitter about what tight end had the most upside, who had the most physical tools. And I think Luke Musgrave might be the answer, because at 6'5 plus, almost 6'6", 255 pounds, at the Senior Bowl, he ran over 20 miles per hour based on the tracking data that they had in Mobile. That is moving for a big guy. Ran 4.61. If you look at his testing data, it is eerily similar to Travis Kelce. Now, I'm not going to say he's Travis Kelce, but when you just look at the physical tools, this guy as a pass catcher, a vertical tight end, someone who can stretch the seam, and someone who in this offense with Matt LaFleur, they're not going to ask the tight end to go out and win one-on-one, at least not right away. This is going to be Y-leak. This is going to be play action shot plays. This is going to be take the top off the defense in the middle of the field, stretch that seam vertically. If you're going to play too high against the Packers, then here is 6'6", 253 running 4.6 down the middle, and you're going to put your safeties in a position where they're going to have to cover, your linebackers in a position where they're going to have to cover. And then he's got the frame to be a blocker, right? I think he is a willing blocker. He's just not a very good one right now. And one other thing, Ross, Ted Thompson, rest in peace, loved multi-sport athletes and loved athletic families. Luke Musgrave comes from a family of competitive downhill skiers. He played, I think, 4 sports in college, including skiing. I can't imagine a guy 6'6", 250 as a competitive ski racer. That must have just looked bananas.
Don't want to be in the way of that. Don't want to be in the way of that.
But when you're talking about athletic gifts, the ability, we talk about this with running back, to jump cut and move in that sort of way with that lower body flexibility, he has the physical profile of the elite tight ends that we see in the league. And he is the kind of guy that you take a risk on.
Okay, so if Luke Musgrave is the physical profile on one side of the spectrum, pick 50, Jayden Reed out of Michigan State, the young wide receiver, is on the opposite side of the spectrum. 5'11", 187-ish pounds, but goodness gracious, is he an absolute playmaker with the ball in his hands. I didn't necessarily think that slot wide receiver, which is kind of where I see Reed, was going to be maybe a big focus for the Green Bay Packers. Do you think that that's the same way that they look at him in their system, and how does he contribute to their offense?
Yeah, if you go back through the Ted Thompson era, the only receivers that they've drafted in the top 100, and I think you can expand it even further than that are 195 or below, are Randall Cobb and Amari Rodgers. Slot only receivers. They do not draft receivers that are the size of Jayden Reed. And when they took Amari Rodgers a couple years ago out of Clemson, by the way, he's not on the roster anymore because he was having a nightmare time catching punts and gave them nothing in the receiving game. Brian Gutekunst
that'll get you off the team pretty quickly.
Yes. Brian Gutekunst said after they took him, we didn't view him as a receiver only. They clearly viewed him as a different type of player, which was essentially his way of saying we didn't apply our normal thresholds to him. I think we see the same thing with Jayden Reed here. He is someone who is going to play the slot in Green Bay. He is going to be a jet motion guy in Green Bay. Gadgets, the way that they used Tyler Ervin back in 2020. Pre-snap motion, return punts, some gadget plays, reverses, get him in the ball in space. He's a different type of player than they have. Christian Watson, big, long, fast, but not a make you miss after the catch kind of player. Romeo Doubs, big, long, fast, but not a make you miss player after the catch. Jayden Reed gives you that. I didn't love the value of a pick like this. I thought 78 for someone like Jayden Reed probably would have made more sense, but I understand. I'm kind of in the minority when it comes to Jayden Reed. It seems like there are a lot of people who are really big fans of his. I'm happy to be wrong on this, to be sure. I was just surprised that, the reporting and things that I heard with the Packers were in love with Jalen Hyatt. And for him to be on the board, be the pick, is pretty surprising.
Yeah, I had both Hyatt as well as also Houston's Tank Dell as guys that maybe were options at that spot ahead of Jayden Reed. So you've got two of these offensive players here. They go Lucas Van Ness on day one. Do they stick with the offensive side? Do they address the defensive side? What's next for the Green Bay Packers as the draft continues on?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of options for them. I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I will be surprised if they don't take another tight end in this draft. Whether that's in the third round, in the fourth round, in the fifth round, I think they have a lot of really good options. They need to get a safety at some point, and I think depth on the defensive front. I think Lucas Van Ness in the first round is a guard against not finding the right guy because he can play some three technique as a pass rusher, especially line him up in the A gap like they did with Zadarius Smith. If you remember back in 2020 and 2021, they played Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, and Rashawn Gary all on the field at the same time.
Yep.
Good luck trying to block all of those guys. Well, Lucas Van Ness, not quite Zadarius Smith yet, but has the sort of physical profile that would give you the options to say, okay, we can play you at 3 tech if we're the Packers and not feel like we're giving up a ton in the run game. And so that kind of versatility is a little bit of insurance against that. So I think safety, I think another tight end, depth at corner probably, and keep an eye on running back because this is the last year of A.J. Dillon's deal. Aaron Jones just restructured his contract. He's probably going to be on the team for at least 2 more years. This could be the last year of A.J. Dillon, and then you get some of these other guys. This is a really deep, really good running back class. Someone like Roshan Johnson from Texas. I don't want to throw out too many names.
Like him a lot.
And so there's the kid from Pittsburgh who I absolutely love.
Israel Abanikanda, big fan of his.
Oh my goodness. I fell in love with him watching his tape yesterday and fell in draft love. And like, I was like, I need this guy on my team. So yeah, I think there are a lot of options for them moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, the Green Bay Packers have a lot of different directions they could go. If you want to keep up with the post Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers, make sure you're following along with the Locked On Packers podcast, hosted here by Peter Bukowski. New episodes every single Monday through Friday, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks, Peter.